Hi guys, how you doing? I thought I'd do a video on emotional instability in lockdown because it's something that seems to be coming up as a massive thing for everybody right now, myself included. Now, disclaimer, I am nobody's idea of chill. I am not zen. I am not relaxed. I am not someone who historically hides her feelings particularly well. If I feel something, you tend to know about it. And even I, at the moment, am going, whoa, with the level of sudden reactivity that I'm experiencing. So I spent some time this week doing some research on it because across my clients, across my friends, across the internet where I've been reading things, this is a common theme. There's a meme going around at the moment that it's called the lockdown wall, pandemic wall, where people are just hitting this point where they can't do it anymore and it's really difficult for them. So I thought, right, what's going on there? I've spoken before about how the lockdown has affected our sense of resilience and our sense of well-being, creating a sense of increased anxiety and stress, affecting our sleep, our concentration, and our mindset. This has been going on for a long time now. Now, when we are under stress and pressure for a short period of time, our bodies can kind of cope with that. We're kind of okay. We can deal with it sometimes positively. Sometimes it can give us a little bit of a kick. It's hard, but we tend to get through it. Extended stress, chronic stress, releases chemicals like adrenaline into our system and cortisol into our system, both of which have a purpose for us, but are not meant to be flooding our systems all of the time. And if they do, that can lead us jittery and anxious and struggling with things like body aches, tiredness, and a feeling of lack of motivation. We've been through that phase. We've done the extended phase. And we're all feeling those things as a result of too much exposure to chemicals that don't normally flood our systems like this. Now, the phase that we're in now is called traumatic stress. That's where the stress is the result of trauma. You might think of trauma as one big, massive event that shakes the world and ends everything, like a bereavement. And lots of us have experienced bereavements over the last year, or people getting sick, or people that we love having to do things that maybe we didn't expect. So that has happened to lots of us. But trauma can happen because of tiny ground shakes too. A feeling that our fundamental safety, that the world that we know, that we expect, is constantly doing this, leaves us feeling sick and traumatized and like we don't know where we stand. So things like lockdowns a day before Christmas, not seeing your family for long, cancelled weddings, cancelled birthdays, cancelled funerals, constantly changing travel plans, schools that close after opening with no notice at all, having to rearrange work schedules, getting sick yourselves, the worry of getting sick yourselves. Those are all tiny groundswells. And in amongst all that lockdown stuff that's going on is our real lives. In the last few weeks in my house, my boiler's blown up, my tumble dryer's blown up, my cooker's blown up, my new car's developed a fault, which was a massive stress for me. My work has done this because of lockdown, and I use work as a coping mechanism. And then most fundamentally, some delight decided to steal my identity 2 months before I need to re-go for the mortgage that my husband and I have been slogging our guts out so that we can afford a house big enough for our family. And that was the point at which I just went. And my emotional resilience and my coping strategies haven't been there since I found out about that. And that's kind of where loads of us are. I've had my own traumatic experience in that sense, but that can look like a diagnosis of illness. It can look like just not coping with having 3 children or more children or less children at home with you while you're trying to do a job. It can look like a redundancy that you're not expecting. It can look like sickness in your family. It can look like any of the myriad of things that happen to us because life still happens around the pandemic, and our ability to cope with those things just isn't there. So what's the result of that? Well, the result of that for loads of us, especially women around my age, so maybe 21, 22, depending on your life situation, to about 50, seem to be the ones who are really struggling with the emotional ability. What's happening is you are finding that it's a bit like PMT on steroids. So you know that you're overreacting, something little happens or something not so little happens, and you boom. And you're like, I'm being an arse, I shouldn't be doing this, this is not how I handle things, I'm going with it, I'm gone. You might cry more than usual. You might feel hopeless. The symptoms are very similar to depression and anxiety. You might not be sleeping properly. What's going on there is that in the traumatic stress phase, our bodies are constantly primed for something bad to happen. So we're not able to concentrate on anything other than key survival. We're not able to sleep properly because our brains are just keeping us very slightly more alert than we usually are in case something bad happens. We're not able to react to things in the way that we usually would because we're primed for fight or flight constantly. You're not going from 0 to 60 in a second, you're going from 58 to 60 in a second. You're already there, you've just gotten used to that feeling. So you think you're okay, you're like, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm doing it, I'm not doing it, I'm crying, I'm shouting, I'm swearing, I'm losing control, I'm not able to concentrate, I'm not coping. And lots of people have hit that point where they're going, I'm not coping. It's going to be a long winter, we're not done yet. So what can we do? We need to look at the strategies that we employ. We have maladaptive strategies, and then we have adaptive strategies. So maladaptive means bad strategies, things that we turn to because we just need comfort. Drugs, alcohol, sleeping all day, watching Netflix for hours on end, zoning out on our phones, ignoring people. A maladaptive strategy might be thinking, I really need to talk to someone about this. But when someone asks you about it, you might say, no, I'm fine, everything's fine. A maladaptive strategy is putting a picture of your life looking perfect on social media without admitting that 20 minutes later you went and cried in the toilets for an hour. And then that leads to maladaptive strategies for other people because they see that and go, my life doesn't look like that, I feel like shit. So maladaptive means creating an illusion, a falseness that you're okay, when actually what it's doing is just stuffing down as much as you can. And guys, this stuff is too big, it's going to pop back up, and it's popping back up explosively for a lot of us. What are adaptive coping strategies? So adaptive coping strategies, you can think of it as a wheel. I might even pop an image for you on my Facebook. What activities can I take? What can I do that helps? So that might be going for a walk. It might be talking to somebody. For me, I've kind of closed the doors a little bit on that. I'm only talking to people who I really trust and I really feel safe. I have a couple of friends who, one in particular that I can think of, who I really love, and I love their company and I think they're great, but I never know where I am with them. And I probably won't even speak to that person until the end of lockdown because I don't have the mental capacity to deal with my own feelings around that. So if you know that you've got those sorts of triggers, take them out of the equation. Stick to safety, stick to people that you trust, stick to people that you love. I have been really pleased to see how amazing women in particular are being to each other online. When you're struggling with schoolwork, when you're struggling with your life, people are being really supportive, and that's lovely. What options do I have? Okay, your control for planning a holiday in 3 months, changing jobs right now, you know, getting thin and fit and being amazing might not be there, but what can you do? Can you increase your vitamin intake? Don't go to bed going, tomorrow will be the day, I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to eat healthily, I'm going to bath, I'm going to meditate. That does not work. You set yourself up for failure, and then you reinforce the idea that you can't succeed in healthier choices. Tiny, tiny steps, guys. All of these things are about tiny steps. This is not about an end goal. This is not about living a different type of life. This is not about future stuff. This is survival. For me, one of the things I did for myself when I was really sad last week and I'd found out about the awfulness was I bought myself a bunch of flowers, orange roses, which are my absolute favourites, and I love them more than anything in the world. They make me happy. That was it. I bought myself some flowers. Next day, lit one of my favourite candles. I just sat on my sofa. All I wanted to do was cry. But they made me feel better because I love them. Little tiny steps, little things that in the moment can reduce that adrenaline stress. What social resources can I call on? I want to cuddle. I'm not going to lie to you. I want to see my mum. I want to see my mates. I want to cry. I want to feel shit. I want to get drunk. I want to forget about it. Those things aren't available to me right now, but my friends who I am turning to have been incredible at just checking in with me, even though they've got their own shit going on, and going, are you all right? You okay? And I'm really grateful for that. I think that I'm really lucky to have that, but I think that you need to call on the same thing. A lot of my friends will say things to me like, well, I don't want to bother somebody because, you know, their problems are bigger than mine, or it'll probably be boring. Yes, if you're the sort of person who constantly has a drama, phoning your mates going, my world is falling apart, they might get a bit wary of it right now. But most of us aren't. Your friends want to know if you're finding it hard because they're finding it hard too. And you can feel a sense of tribal acceptance of each one another, of saying, you know what, this is really shit. And instead of that shame and guilt that we feel when we're getting it wrong, especially because we feel like, you know, our kids need us to be together and have all this stuff right, being there to turn to another mum or another human and go, I can't do this, I can't do it. And them going, I know, it's so hard. Let's have a drink, you're all right, we've got this, we'll get there. That's powerful in the moment. That acceptance, that making it okay for each other is vital. So do that. And finally, how can I comfort myself? You might want to slump in the front of the telly and watch Netflix all night. That might be okay once or twice, but do you need something else? Sensory stimulation can really help. Sensory activities like deep breaths, smells if you like smells, sound, sights if you like it, listen to music, going for a run, those all help. One of the things that you can do that's a really quick exercise that no one is too busy to do is, if you are very heightened and you are very reactive and you're becoming very emotional, go outside your back door. All it takes to take you from that very stressed, very reactive amygdala lizard brain that is in fight or flight is 3 minutes. Close your eyes. Don't try to think about your thoughts. Probably can't. Deep breaths into your tummy, slowly. And then try to concentrate on what you can hear. And you'll find that you hear more and more and more and more. Set a timer for 3 minutes. If you get a minute and a half, brilliant. But all you've got to do is try and concentrate on everything you can hear for 3 minutes. And that will be enough to switch you into the more rational, calm element of your brain that will allow you to take control again. That's a great way of comforting yourself. Alcohol and food, fine. You want to do it, knock yourself out. But be aware that there are negative stresses that come from that too. So think about a little bit of balance. Just switch one thing in if you have to. Those are things that can be really helpful. Now, one of the things I saw another therapist say in her video about this was, guys, talk to your bosses, tell them that you're not coping, be really honest. I think that I get her point, but I also think that there's a degree of privilege in that statement. I can do the same thing. I am my own boss. I can stop whenever I want, and I am quite capable of saying to people, no, I'm sorry, I'm not working today. But if your boss is someone who doesn't get that, you can't do that. If your job isn't secure, you can't do that. If you don't feel like you're achieving what your boss or your company needs you to, you can't do that. If you're poor, you can't do that. We don't all have the option and the power to say those things. So instead, I'm going to talk to those of you who are managers and bosses and employers and high up in companies, high up enough that you have some influence. Think about the strain and the pressure you are putting on your teams. Expect parents to need to do things differently. Don't put schemes in place for mental health that include things like yoga time at lunchtime, and say things like, oh, well, just talk to me if you're feeling sad, and then do nothing about it. Do practical things. Change deadlines. If a meeting can be an email instead, do the damn email. Check in with your staff at the end of the day, not to see how much work they've done, to see how they are, and mean it when you ask them. Too many companies are expecting families to be able to raise their children, home educate them, function as humans, and work to the same standards that they used to. And if you want to have a team of staff at the end of this who can function for you and deliver, you're going to need to be more careful now. And I don't doubt that you guys are going through the same things yourselves. And for everybody else, if you have a delivery driver who turns up late, don't ream him out. If you're on the end of a customer service line and you're frustrated because something's not working for you, don't shout at that person. Think about the fact that we are all in this position at the same time, and just be a little bit more gentle with each other. I know it's hard because we're all more reactive, but we're not going to make it easy for anyone if we're nasty and unpleasant about that. Let's all prioritise our mental health over everything else right now, because that is the most important thing we have, and it's the only thing that we can guarantee that we need at the end of this. New shoes, new everything, you know, all of those things can go by the by, but we do need to be mentally and physically well to do the job of recovery that our country and ourselves will need. So focus on that. See you soon, guys.